You're now watching the Good, Bad, and Ugly podcast featuring Kevin Bunk, John Downs, and Reese Jantz. All right, first after-hours show here at GBU. Saturday, college football bowl game and championship Saturday, so we've got a great slate: Big 12 championship, SEC championship, American Conference championship, and the Big 10 championship are all games we're going to be talking about today. We also are going to get started with MLB free agency, as JD is wearing the Mets jersey here.
Yes, sir.
So very exciting week, but as always, I'm here with Reese and JD. How you guys doing?
We're doing excited for the first show.
We're doing good, KB, and I want to say Championship Saturday in college football is one of the more underrated underrated days, weekends of the year, in my opinion. It kind of makes up a little bit for the shitty slate we have tomorrow.
Yeah, and it could be the best day of college football. Obviously, we love the playoffs and the championship, but with the amount of games and the quality of the games, you get quantity and quality instead of just the two games that are really good or one game, as we will get later on. But this is the first after-hours episode, and I want to talk about, it's going to be a casual show, and we're going to be talking about anything we want to talk about, and it'll range, probably a lot more enjoyable content here, I think, for more casual fans that just want to listen and enjoy what we're talking about, because we're not going to go crazy like we do on GBU with notes and on betting. If you're not into betting, then it's obviously not for you. Here's a place where we're going to talk about the MLB, we're going to talk about college sports, we're going to talk about NFL, NHL, NBA, everything we want to, everything under the sun, and every variety and facet of the sports themselves, not just the good, bad, and ugly of the NFL. But we'll talk about the Jets and the Giants, and we'll talk about what they have to do in the offseason, what their playoff picture looks like, what each conference's playoff picture looks like, so on and so forth. So, JD, I'll let you take the wheel on the Mets and just overall MLB free agency and what you've thought, and we'll talk a little bit about how the lockout affects everything too.
Yeah, KB. At first, I'll just say, this show for me, you've picked what we kind of want to talk about, and I know what's going on in the sports world, so I know what we're going to talk about. But all of this is kind of just raw thoughts. I'm not planning out what we're saying.
Yep.
This just gives us a chance to go maybe a little more in depth about stuff that we wouldn't talk about. We don't even talk about baseball anyway, so it's good for us to dive into MLB free agency. And I know we have the lockout that just started, so it kind of brings a damper on the free agency move, because there was that 1 week that just a string of signings, there was just $1 billion handed out in 1 week, which is just great because MLB doesn't have that week period the others, the NFL might and the NBA does, free agent frenzy. So it's kind of cool to me to see that for transpire, because I was next to my phone for 3 days. So the Mets. We'll start with. Do you guys want to start with Scherzer, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'm going to start with whatever you want to start with.
I could just start quick because you had a lot more to say about the Mets. I love them, but I know you've been all over it.
Yeah, and
I've kind of been sitting back this season.
I'm not going to go on like a 30-minute long tangent, but yeah, I'll give my thoughts quick.
Yeah.
Escobar, Kana, and Marte on the Friday before the Scherzer move, and all in one night. I loved the Escobar move because he brings you so much versatility. He doesn't have a great glove, but he had 258 last year with 28 home runs, and those are just numbers off my head. I don't know how I remember those. So I love that signing. 2-year deal, cheap, $10 million a year. I mean, there's no risk in that. And then same with Kana. He can bring you any of the corner outfield spots. I'm pretty sure he can play first base too a little bit. Great signing there. 2 years, I think it was $26 million for that. So that brings us with much needed outfield depth. And then the one that no one, we knew the Mets were in on Starling Marte, but we didn't know when it was going to happen. We didn't really hear much about it. And then that came out of nowhere midnight on that Friday. And I was going nuts in my basement. I was dancing around. I was doing the Lazy Mary. I was dancing in my basement for an hour just celebrating this move, because the Mets haven't had a true center fielder in years. They finally get a good defensive player out there, 2-time Gold Glover, a 310 hitter. He gets on base. He's a top of the order guy. You know what you're going to get in Starling Marte. He's been great. Age in baseball to me it doesn't matter. And unless you see a visible decline, like we're going to get to Scherzer soon, to me, age doesn't matter because, one, Escobar and Connor are short deals. So if they're bad, you can dump them off in 2 years. And Marte, I think really it's just him being bad and being this a waste of contract is just hard because he's been such a good player his whole career. Like, this move makes the Mets already better instantly in the field. And then just on defense, they're better. And then to cap it all off, they had the Scherzer signing on Sunday or Monday. It was late Sunday. It was getting hot. We didn't really think we had a chance at all at Scherzer. And then late Sunday, it was like the Mets are seriously in this. They've got a huge record-breaking deal on the table. And then Monday, it was a done deal. 3 years, $150 million, opt out after the second year, $43.3 a year. I mean, that's an insane deal. And this is getting exactly what Steve Cohen we thought we would. Last year was a bit of a letdown because we were aiming high. Like, we thought our expectations were like Springer, Bauer, Real Muto. Like, we wanted all those guys. And after that year and the disappointment and disgrace that last year was, we were a bit worried. I'm not going to lie. I was a bit worried going into the offseason, especially how long it took to get a GM. I really was worried that Steve might not be putting his money where his mouth is. And then Steven Matt's agent, thank you for pissing him off to another level because he was already mad that he was getting declined interviews from presidents, owners. They were declining him from interviewing president of baseball ops, GMs. And he was basically like, you know what, fuck you. And I'm just going to spend. I'm going to spend, and they're not done. Right now, the Mets before the lockout are a much better team than they were pre-lockout when they hired Billy Epler as their GM.
Yeah, I think that Mets obviously have had a dynamite offseason, start the free agency. I think you kind of talked about it. Don't let that first Friday of signing Escobar, Canna, Marte be overshadowed by Scherzer, though. Everyone's been talking about Scherzer, and that's what's happening right now. Everyone's overshadowing that day. That might be a better day for the Mets in the long run than the Scherzer day is, and they both, they go together. It's one offseason. But Escobar has so much versatility in the infield. This was a move they needed to make. I mean, he's just an awesome hitter. Made the All-Star team this past season. And Marte was a guy I wanted for the Yankees bad. I mean, he's 33. You get him at 4 years. That's really good value. I think that's good value for a guy that's still. He might be having the best part of his career the last 2-3 years. So, Marte, really good value, 4 years. You only have him until he's 37. And the money's not crazy. It's good money, but it's not crazy. Really good deal for both sides. Mets needed someone to cover that ground, and that Citi Field outfield is massive.
That's the thing, Reese. 1 second. Let me just say, like, even if you overpay guys, Scherzer, that's a lot. 43 is a lot for a 37-year-old pitcher. But in the MLB, to Steve Cohen, this is just money. It's not salary cap preventing you from making other moves. It's not. Yes, it's a risk signing Scherzer to this big deal, and it could wind up being 3 years. I'll say, if Scherzer's here for 2 years, that means things went incredibly right in New York, and he played well enough to earn himself another contract where he thinks he can make more than that. 2 years for Scherzer would be a win, because that means either he hates New York and he stinks, but there's no way he'd leave 43 on the table, or he's another Cy Young, 2 Cy Young seasons, and he think he can get more on the market.
Yeah, Scherzer, I was thinking about it last night. If he sucks, this is the Wilpon curse. Is nowhere. Oh, yeah. It's not gone at all. If he ends up totally blowing, and it's a 1-year deal, and the Mets get totally screwed, because you really need Scherzer to be pretty good. I think the team's good anyways, but they don't have any other starting pitching.
They still need pitching.
And I'll be honest, like, the bullpen's so bad.
It's not as bad as it looks, but it's not great.
They have 4 solid righties that they trust, but they don't have lefties. You're right. They need to upgrade the bullpen.
And they don't have a guy that I say, and most teams don't anymore. They don't have a guy, though, that I say, I like, we're up 2-1. Not because the closer's kind of becoming a non-existent position in baseball now. There's only a few left. Chapman, Kenley Jansen. Really, that's it at this point. Kenley Jansen's a free agent too, but I think that this I don't trust anyone in this bullpen. But they need a manager too. Buck Showalter, I think, is going to end up being the guy there. Epler's got the ties to him. They kind of talked about it a little bit. So I think if he wants it, the job is his. I think that's a great move too. Reese, I don't know if you had something to say before, and we've just kind of been talking over you.
Yeah, no, it's all right. There's not too much to say anymore. I love all the signings that have been made, but Marte is probably it's probably my favorite signing. I love how the Mets finally got one of those guys that go out there, and no matter how old they are, it's like Buxton and Marte. They just have that speed. Trey Turner's going to be one of those guys too.
Yeah.
The guys that just stay in the league and are consistently good. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward.
Bases.
I feel like Marte is going to become a fan favorite.
Marte does it all. He's got to hope to not get out to a Lindor slump, because this is not a 10-year contract.
It seems like I want to say, like, we talked about the Wilpon Mets curse. It's not even a Wilpon curse at that point if Scherzer and Marte are bad. Like, if they're bust
there's something
contracts,
wrong
like,
with the
these
organization.
guys are two guys like that really, like, you'd think would withstand the Mets curse. Like, we thought Lindor was that, and I really think Lindor has a bounce back year this year. But
Agreed.
How bad he was after how great he was in Cleveland is just unreal. Like, there's something cursed about this team. Like, it may not even be, like, I'm going to knock on wood, like, if Scherzer's hurt, then it's still a Mets curse, because this guy, no matter what, he'll get hurt, but he'll always come back and help in an impactful way.
And he'll end up
a
Cy Young candidate in some way.
And yeah, he's still great. So if he's out for a few weeks, like, the goal for this team is you have to get in the playoffs, which isn't a lock. The Mets getting in the playoffs as things stand right now is not a lock, because they still need starters. DeGrom gets hurt. This rotation is like, you have Scherzer and then a bunch of question marks.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter. We could put up 10 runs a game, but if we have DeGrom and Scherzer and 3 shitters at the
trading
end of
or free agency, you still
rotation.
need another starter, a third starter, maybe even another depth guy that you can rely on, because last year it was a mess. This rotation was a mess last year. They were great in the first half. All of them were healthy, and then it fell apart. Walker collapsed. Stroman was really the only consistent. DeGrom got hurt. Carrasco was horrible. McGill started good. McGill was horrible at the end. So it really went south. They need a good, healthy season from their rotation. And like you said, Kibby, there's guys in the bullpen like Edwin Diaz, Trevor May. You look at them, and like on their good days, those are guys you'd love to have. But they can come in at any day, any point in the game, and blow it. They can have an off day. Trevor May can never find the strike zone. Once he loses it, he'll never find it back. He'll be out there for 30 pitches. But on his good days, he's a good middle of the pack 7th, 8th inning reliever. They still need more, though. This team, as it stands, with the Braves, if they sign Freeman, they still don't win the division. They got to keep adding.
Yeah.
There's rumors that Stevie might open the checkbook for Chris Bryant. I don't know how likely that is, because they just let Baez walk, but God, would I love Chris Bryant.
I love him.
That would,
it's another guy. It's another guy that can play every position on the field.
That would void my second question or my follow-up to either of you.
KB, I had a question, too,
you got all
for you.
The big winners of free agency. You got Marte, Escobar, Canna, Scherzer, of course. How big are the losses of Loop in the bullpen? Best bullpen pitcher on the team last year. I know you guys might disagree as far as flash in the pan season.
No, I do agree.
No, he's absolutely
best bullpen pitcher last year. Angels gave him good money, but you also lose Baez in the infield, who struggled with his glove last year, which is very unusual for Baez. But you're really losing a great player. I know a lot of swing and miss. The headlines
he was raking. He was raking
negative towards Baez, but he's a really good baseball player. So how big are those losses, and what are ways the Mets can fill him? Does McNeil fill Baez's shoes? Does he get back to the player he was? So I'd like to hear thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think losing Baez is more of a hurt for us on the bases. If you watch the Mets game, that guy, he was just so aggressive. He had such a, not even a knowledge of the game, just an understanding. Like, he knew how long it was going to take for an outfielder to run to the ball, and he would figure out how much time he had. Like, rounding third, you would think he was never going home half the time, and he ends up safe. I'd say 4 out of 5 times, which is absurd. Seeing how close these plays are, he almost like views the game in slow motion, which is what I really loved watching about Javi. But I honestly think, as long as we make some serviceable moves the rest of the offseason, we won't miss Javi too much. But he was obviously great for us when he came.
Yeah, losing Javi stinks because of how great he was with us at the end of the year. But the front office looked at it like, so the player that we got the last 50 games was worth the contract, a long-term contract, 6 years. 140 was what he got. We offered him probably like around 5 at 125 or 6 at 125. But the first half of the year with the Cubs, you don't want to be tied up to that guy who swings and misses and is always striking out for long-term. I think I don't know if it was the right move. We'll see how it plays out. But going and sticking with McNeil right now, barring any moves, I still think McNeil has high upside because we know in 2019 and 2020 how good of a player he was. And he just had, like, all of the Mets had off years last year except Pete Alonso. Every one of them had their down year, which is what blew up the whole season because they couldn't score, and then at the end of the year they couldn't pitch. So they were a bad baseball team. But McNeil, we know, if he gets back to what he was 2 years ago, can be a serviceable second baseman and is a better short-term option with guys like Mauricio and Beatty coming up through the ranks. I think letting Baez go wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
As much as I'd love to keep him, if we make moves or we get half of what McNeil was, then it's a good move because you got to remember the Mets aren't just trying to win now. This isn't a go for it like the Rams, win now, concede the future. Their goal, Sandy and Steve and Billy, they want to build up the farm system while also competing, which is why I'd say a trade is probably not likely unless one comes up that they love for Chapman or Castillo. I'd say a trade is probably not likely along those lines because they do want to build up the system, and they have 2 first-round picks in the top 15 because of Rocker and how bad they were last year. And they have a bunch of compensation picks from Conforto, from Syndergaard. So they're going to try to build up this farm system. They didn't want to be tied to Javi long-term, and I don't blame them. So I think losing him, like reset on the bases, because he is a great base runner. He's electric. He always knows how the little secrets of diving in. His slides are always great. He's always a magician. He's El Mago. He's a magician. He's always safe on base. Losing an electric player like that who will sell tickets, who will score runs on his own is tough. But I do think it's not the end of the world. And I'll touch on Loop quick because you did ask us about Loop. Not going to lose sleep over it. He had his career year last year. He got a good, much-deserved, well-deserved payday from the Angels. I don't think the Mets were ever going to hand out a 2-year contract to him like that after what he did last year because he was great. He was really like one of our backbones in the bullpen. He was always there when we needed to get him out of a jam. But it's hard to see him replicating another year like that. Like, he was just too good. If the Mets signed him, odds are he would have been terrible next year. That's just how it goes for this team. So I'm not losing too much sleep over Loop either. But holes in the bullpen, possible hole at second/third base that they got to fill.
So to wrap up on the Mets there, hopefully, even though I'm not a Mets fan, I'd love to see DeGrom and Scherzer healthy for an entire season. That's 40 wins right off the rip. And I want to pivot now to the other side of the city, across the borough, to the Yankees. I can get us started here. Yankees' most significant move pre-lockout is Luis Rojas to be the third base coach. So a lot of Yankees fans panicking. A lot of guys left out there. We've learned now Verlander's back on the market also, a guy that they were interested in. Because Verlander, I don't know if you guys saw it, did not sign his contract.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
Very odd situation. I'm not getting my hopes up for that. I'm not saying I think that he's going to end up anywhere else anyways. But there's a guy that's back on the market that they were interested in. The only guy they seemingly made a push for and offered a contract to pre-lockout. They also got Jose Peraza from the Mets. But that is totally neither here nor there. And a lot of guys left. Correa, who I think is their big free agent, is available still. He's going to sign big after the lockout. We'll see if the Yankees want to pay him. I don't buy into any of the rumors I see with the Yankees. I don't think Brian Cashman leaks anything. I don't think anybody knows a thing about what the Yankees want to do except for Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner. I think they were waiting to see the rule changes with the CBA, and I don't think that it will have an effect on the Mets spending, but I can understand why someone would say, we don't want to tie up long-term contracts until we see the direction the league is going in. I don't think, like I said, I don't think it would affect signing big contracts pre-CBA. But if you're a Yankees fan, you cannot start panicking. I'm not. I wish Len was here today because he would be, and it would make for really good discussion because we'd have both sides of the spectrum.
I'm going to say Len's piece for you, KB, once you're done.
And okay, beautiful. So, the Yankees, I'm tired of the rumor that the idea that they don't spend. They had the 4th highest payroll in the MLB last year. I'm sorry we're not pulling money out of our pockets like Steve Cohen, which the problem for Yankees fans, if all these free agents, Marte, Escobar, Canha, Scherzer, got spread out among the league, and the Marlins signed one, and the Mariners signed one, the Rockies signed one, I wouldn't care that the Yankees waited until the CBA. Nobody would care. But
Well,
it's because
it's just the Mets.
And I understand that as a local, we're seeing you guys in the headlines every day. Does it matter to me as much? No, because you're not in our division. If you were in our division, if it was Islanders, Rangers, and the Rangers are signing everybody, which is typically what happens anyways, I get a little frustrated.
KB, let me just say, we'll talk about it later. We're going to get to a lot of talk about it with the Yankees. If you guys take Freddie Freeman, I'd be doing laps around my house because he would be out of the NL East.
So speaking of, what are the Braves doing with that?
The Braves,
come on.
The Braves
come
are
on.
notoriously cheap and don't spend. Look at the contracts
You
that they've
gotta
given out.
Acuna and Albie's contract.
They try to poach these guys early, and they get these guys for nothing. So when a guy like Freeman, it's ridiculous, Reese, you're right. It's absurd.
It's disrespectful to him.
Because a guy like Freeman's been there
he's
for
been
13
great
years.
for them.
He's been there when they're at the bottom, and he's there now at the top. Fan favorite, probably of this generation's favorite Brave. You know, they had the great teams in the 90s, but for anyone born in the last 2 decades, this is your favorite Brave. This is the one you tell your kids about. And Freddie Freeman, man, I think this is a no-brainer for the Yankees.
Oh, that would be huge for you guys.
180, I'd give him 6 for 2, and just to lock him up. I don't think you should go out of your way to try to trade prospects for Matt Olson because it'll take a lot, and he's a great player, but it'll take a lot.
Great player.
And then you're going to have to pay him even more than you're going to have to pay Freeman. Rizzo is like a total fallback. It's a good fallback plan, but it's not one that a World Series, a team that wants to win a World Series should be settling for. Freddie Freeman's a guy that I think has to be wearing pinstripes. I don't think he's going to be, but I think he has to be. And it's a shame on the organization if they only get a guy like Correa or Story and settle at first base with Rizzo, who hit 240 last year and provided a spark for us, but was not great for us by any means. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on the Yankees also, because I can talk about it all day.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm not gonna I'm gonna forget things. Like our friend Big Len was supposed to join us today. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Big Yankees fan, pretty much the opposite point of view of KB, which is why it would have made for great discussion. We'll get him on eventually, and he'll probably be a part of our baseball podcast if we ever do one down the road. So you'll hear plenty from him. I'll say his piece that he's been preaching all week, that it just drives through my skull because of how passionate he is about the Yankees. And just like KB, they're both very passionate. They just have different point of views. Right now, the Yankees not spending is a problem for some fans. And KB just highlighted why it shouldn't be. They want to wait till after the new CBA. Personally, I do think the Yankees make a move, but this is where our friend Jack has been preaching. He says the Yankees are not spending. Hal is cheap. He's not going to spend. Cashman doesn't have the resources to spend, and the Yankees aren't going to make a move and go in with the same team as last year. That's what he would say. He's been preaching that the Yankees aren't going to spend, and I've agreed with him for the time being before the luxury tax. Did I think the Yankees were ever going to make a big move before the deadline of the lockout?
I did.
Probably not. Could it have happened? Sure. Could the Yankees have made a big move? Sure. But the odds of them signing Correa or Freeman or trading for Olsen are much higher after the lockout, personally, than I think before. Because to me, I don't see how. I do see a scenario where the Yankees go in with the same team because of how surprisingly quiet they've been. But like I said, KB, you never know what they're doing. They're working in silence, and sometimes that's a good thing because you're just focused. Like they're not listening to the outside world. They're not going to make a panic move. So I do think at the end they either sign Freeman, sign Correa, trade for Olsen. They'll do something to fix the team. But KB, what would you say to like Big Len, who says Hal should sell the team, Cashman should be fired, who's in all-out panic right now because of this?
So Hal's been running the team since 2009. George Steinbrenner died right before the 2009 World Series, but that was his team still. So since 2009, let's put the time frame in for Hal. Offered a huge contract to Robinson Cano. This is the first big contract that Hal does not get, but this is the first one he offers. Massive contract to Robinson Cano. Didn't sign it. He signed for the same in Seattle. No taxes. You make a lot more money.
Yeah.
And you know what? He might have just wanted to get out of a massive market. It's the biggest market, and it's a ridiculously high standard as a Yankee.
Unfortunately for him, he came back on the other side of the market with a shit.
Yeah, and, I mean,
he could have been the next captain of the Yankees.
That's career mistakes.
Keep going.
So we move away, and I'm probably missing one or two in here also. Let's move away from Cano. Jacoby Ellsbury, big contract. Doesn't work. They don't always work out, but Hal's giving them out. Hal's giving out big contracts. Traded for Giancarlo Stanton. Although that wasn't a signing, at the time, you put out the biggest contract in the league. Now the contract looks pretty good a few years later because of what other guys are making, but that's how it works. At the time, though, we took on the biggest contract in the MLB. For a guy that just won the MVP, so you want to talk about Cashman and Steinbrenner not taking risks and going for big fish? We traded for an NL MVP who had the biggest contract in Major League Baseball.
And the Yankees looked like the runaway favorite that season. After they got Stanton in 2017, it was like, all right, the Yankees, here comes the evil empire, the Death Star, here we go, the Yankees are back. And then it's been a lot of ups and downs since then.
And then we can move to Garrett Cole, gets a $300 million contract, highest paid pitcher in the league at that time. Now a couple guys have passed him. So I don't understand this not spending narrative. And then also, on the contrary, let's look back at 2019 offseason, I think it was. Machado, Bryce Harper, Patrick Corbin, all out there. Corbin signed early, the others signed late. This is after this is year before Garrett Cole. This is the year before the Garrett Cole signing. Cashman doesn't sign any of these guys, and Yankees fans were hounding him for it. Who did Brian Cashman sign that offseason? Adam Ottavino, who was the best reliever of the class. He got him for $10 million a year. DJ LeMahieu for nothing. He basically gave LeMahieu the hoodie he was wearing that day he signed him, and LeMahieu took the contract. And he almost won the MVP. So there's other guys available that are going to step up to the task and play. You have to trust the general managers and the scouts, although I don't love Brian Cashman anymore. I really think it's gotten stale. You're with the team for 21 years, and you've won yourself 2 World Series, the first team, or 3 World Series, the first 2 teams you didn't even build. I think it's gotten a little stale, and I don't think him or Boone should be back, but I still trust Brian Cashman. He's still one of the best in the league. Him being bad is not a reason I wanted him gone. It's the longevity that he's been there and the lack of championships, and we haven't made the World Series in 2009. That's pretty unacceptable for a couple of the teams that the Yankees have had. But you got to take a step back on this we don't spend, and this, the Yankees are terrible in free agency, and they're not like George was anymore. It's not much different. Just George was the one that built the dynasty. So he's the one that found success. A guy like Jeter, JD, you'll disagree, a guy like Jeter doesn't show up every day. He does not. So, and free agent signings don't always work out. The A-Rod signings don't always work out. CC signings don't always work out. Jacoby Ellsbury is an example. So that's my piece on why we shouldn't be worried and why it's stupid to run the narratives that are being ran with this Yankees team.
Yeah,
it's hard to argue with that.
KB, you got any, or Reese, you got anything to say about the Yankees before we give our final pieces here? KB, you can even respond to probably what you have to say.
Nothing crazy, but I want to say, KB, I feel for you. Like you're a respectable Yankees fan who's not up in everyone's faces and makes you want the Yankees to fail miserably every game. Yeah, aka Big Len. I mean, goddamn.
And most Yankees fans too. Like if I get 27
agree.
rings again, someone's gonna get their head into the pavement.
Exactly.
It's not even that. It's the pure panic over the first 2 weeks of this offseason. We haven't even touched on it, KB. What do you think about Boone? Because I know he's sticking around after that last year.
And sorry, Reese, we'll let you make your point in a second. We're kind of getting, we're bouncing around a little bit here.
Yeah.
Boone, I just kind of touched on it a little bit. I'll say my reasoning. Him and Cashman, I think, should be gone. I think Boone was a mess last season. I think if you watch the Yankees wildcard game, if they were at home and didn't have to play with the monster in Fenway, they blow Boston out. So it goes to show and that's not an excuse. It goes to show how does home field advantage impact your game. And Stanton easily hits 2 home runs in that game and dominates the Red Sox. Single-handedly would have beat them, but we get killed in Boston because of the amount of games we lost that were toss-up, the amount of ninth-inning blown saves. I will throw one game in particular that we all watched. That's why I use it as an example. Is the Field of Dreams game. Zach Britton in the ninth inning, after he blew 2 saves previously, and he's been our worst reliever all year, we go to Britton in the ninth. Unacceptable. And they lose the game.
Especially
in the bottom of the ninth. Tim Anderson hits that 2-run homer after that great comeback that Stanton and Judge launched in the ninth, which was insane.
That was electric.
And you put Zach Britton in, it's a lock to blow that game. So he should be gone. Cashman should be gone, and I think that free agents might be. And I'll restate my case depending on how the free agency goes the rest of this offseason. I think that, and I'm going to save this clip. I think that the Yankees have grown stale to people that want to come because they're not fresh, they're not hip, they're not, what new baseball teams are. They're not moving in the direction of baseball. They're staying in the pinstripes, 27 rings, Babe Ruth, you can't shave here, old and traditional mentality of baseball, where instead of having a fiery guy like Steve Cohen that's saying, come here, let's win, it's going to be exciting, we're building something special. Reese, you can go now.
Yeah, so I don't really have much to say, but I wanted to say that I feel for you in the frustration of not getting to a championship. Obviously, the Mets are a little bit, or not a little bit, they're very different than the Yankees, but to a fan who actually seems like they care and who isn't obnoxious to Mets fans all the time, I just want to say, like, I'm rooting for you. I'm not rooting for the Yankees. I hope the Yankees crumble, but I'm rooting for you, KB. And
for you guys.
That's like, to be honest, it's almost like me, like, because you got a Yankees championship in your life, but you didn't really, like, you were young,
Packers.
you didn't really, like, remember it.
Packers.
Yeah. So you've been waiting 10, 15 years for another one, and it's just like every year they're there, and it doesn't happen. It's like me with the Packers, unfortunately. I can't fucking get past the NFC Championship game. The Yankees lost to the Astros twice. We know why they lost in 2017. The Astros didn't lose a home game, and we know why that's the case. The Yankees won all the games in the Bronx, right, if I remember correctly, and the Astros won all the games where they were cheating. So we know why, and unfortunately that's just how it was. But they get lost to the Red Sox the next year, lost to the Astros again the next year, lost to the Rays, lost to the Red Sox. I mean, it's tough.
It's been a tough stretch.
It doesn't seem like right now they're doing anything to go get over the hump, and they could. It seems like they're in the best position to land Correa, really, out of any, if they really want him. If they really want Correa, they can go get him. They definitely could.
I think
it's just
they
a
will.
matter of whether they want to do that, whether they want to pay him that long-term contract, which is a risk. But in baseball, it's just money, and to the Mets, it's not a big thing. To a team like the Pirates and Orioles, they're hoarding their money, so they would never hand out a contract like that. But I'm sure if it makes them a better team, that it's not Hal not wanting to spend. If him and Cashman believe it makes them a better team, I feel like signing Correa is in the cards for them, possibly.
Also, I just want to touch on something with the MLB spending, and then we'll move on from baseball. These owners are embarrassing. That don't.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Steve Cohen, I understand we like to flash his net worth. He's the $14 million owner of Jordan Sports. But what's the difference between $5 billion, Hal Steinbrenner's $5-6 billion, and Steve Cohen's $14 billion when it comes to spending on a baseball team? It's not much of a difference. Spend your money. Same thing with the small market teams. I know you operate within your team's revenue, so a team like the Rays and A's don't really bring much in during the season, but you're still a multi-billion-dollar owner. Spend some money, get some good players to your team, because you want to know how to make more revenue than you're making right now? Bring in Max Scherzer. Sell 2 million Kelly Green Max Scherzer jerseys next year if you're the team. You know how easy that would be? But I understand, too, that doesn't bring in as much revenue as a team like the Yankees or Mets are making, and it's impossible for those small market teams to carry on with that and pick up with that. But, I mean, the owners really... it's embarrassing that they're not.
This is a good segue into the lockout conversation, because you have to think a salary floor is coming. Like, the owners are not going to want to do that, because the Pirates, the Orioles, the Guardians now, the Cleveland Guardians. I already know I'm gonna fuck that one up a bunch of times. I'm gonna keep calling them the Indians, because I still do it with the Redskins, but. Those guys, their team payrolls are less than Scherzer's average annual salary, which is not good for baseball.
It's just wrong. And you said it shouldn't be possible.
Manfred was talking about it in his press conference the other day, and he was saying how it's harder for teams to keep star players because of if we make the service time thing 5 years, which it would be to become a free agent, 5 years of MLB service to become a free agent. He's like, if we make it 5 years instead of 6, it's harder for smaller market teams to compete. Yeah. But the easy response is, why don't we get people to own the smaller market teams who actually want to invest and spend in this team? It's not the players. The players are not leaving because they don't want to play in Pittsburgh. It's because you're not going to hand out contracts to them. You're trading your best players every year. If the Orioles trade Cedric Mullins, there's seriously something wrong. They just don't like they're really hoarding their money, and Cedric Mullins still has a few years of control. Like, this is not a guy that's a free agent anytime soon.
And I just want to, I'm going to kind of compare across sports here, because JD, you're totally right. And it takes a little bit of money to turn around a team that doesn't make it. So you're going to lose money. You're going to take a hit if you're trying to really turn around a team like the A's. Rebuild the stadium, relocate them, get some good players, do what you have to do. But you know who should be the smallest market team in sports that sucks every year? The Green Bay Packers. Because they're the last small town team left, but they've ran the organization. I understand it's salary cap, and it's different. There's a salary floor. But they've ran an organization that revolves around success, and over time, that's how you gain fans. Bandwagon fans are still fans.
That's why Steelers have so many fans, too.
Steelers have so many fans everywhere. The Cowboys have so many fans everywhere. The Cowboys were not, in the 80s, they were not a rich brand. And Jerry Jones took them, and he invested in them, got a great roster, great coaches, spent his money. He built the sickest freaking stadium to this day in sports. And the Cowboys don't go a day without making millions of dollars.
You know, everyone hates Jerry Jones, but you gotta, like, if you're a Cowboys fan, you gotta love him, man.
I hate how he's a little
too invested. He is invested in that team.
Press conference either. Right?
He does his press conference. He's very involved. He's probably in the coach's ear in the middle of the game talking to Big Mike. But he invests, and that's what baseball needs. Baseball needs the Guardians, the Cleveland Guardians need someone to invest in a team, because they were a World Series talent,
caliber
and it
team.
all fell apart because they did not want to pay their pitchers. They did not want to pay Lindor, and then here we are now. Their only star left is Jose Ramirez, who's probably also on his way out, because there are going to be teams lining up at the door to get him, and I'm sure they're going to try to trade him, dump his salary, and continue to be the smallest payroll in baseball, which is just bad for the sport. Because baseball does have a problem where the good teams are separated by too large a gap between the bad teams. Because in the current playoff format, not a lot of teams get in. There's only 10 teams, because 5 and 5, and then 2 of them are wild card teams. But the gap in between, like, the middle of the pack teams and then the bad teams is not good for the sport, because the Pirates, Orioles, those teams are getting killed on a night in, night out basis. It makes for a bad product.
Yep, and so I want to wrap it up there. Let's move on now. We've overstayed our welcome in the baseball segment of the show, I think.
And we still could talk more next week, like next week's show on After Hours, if you guys want to touch on, like, the Rangers signings and
we will go into, because I want to keep talking about baseball, but the baseball news is going to run thin, so we're going to cover a lot more.
We spent a lot of time.
But we spent a lot of time today talking about the Mets and Yankees. Their news is not going to change for the next few months, unfortunately.
Besides manager. Except for hopefully the Mets get a manager.
But let's move on. We got a lot of games today. Championship Saturday in college football. Very excited for this. The slate of games today starts with the Big 12 Championship at 12. This is a very important game. Number 9 Baylor's playing number 5 Oklahoma State. Probably the second best value for a game that you're going to get today, in my opinion. After the SEC Championship, which we'll talk about next. I don't know if you guys have any say in this Oklahoma State-Baylor game, but I think it's just really, really a great 12 o'clock game, because Oklahoma State's got a great shot. More likely than not, if they win today, they're going to be playing in the playoff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was just thinking about that. I don't know how you can't, if they win this week, but at least by a touchdown or two, I don't know how you can't put them in.
Because, you know, they're
especially
the 5 seed right now.
Alabama barely squeaks past Auburn.
This is a year where usually this happens. The 1, 2, 3, and 4 are playing on Championship Sunday. The only way it doesn't is really if Notre Dame is in the top 4. So everyone's got a chance at losing. You know, the SEC Championship always has 2 of the top 4 teams in it. But this Oklahoma State game has big implications, and Baylor's really good. Baylor is really very tough, good. Really tough team. Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma last week. They're ready to go today, I think. I'm not going to really be picking winners here, but I think Oklahoma State should and will win. But they gotta win today if they want a chance.
There's a clear path for them into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like a week ago, you might have thought. Like, to me personally, I'm shocked. Like, I love it because I do think Oklahoma State's better than Notre Dame. very interested to see how Notre Dame is in their bowl game / playoff if they make it with Marcus Freeman as their head coach. But I was shocked because the committee loves Notre Dame. They're always putting in Notre Dame at the top 5, top 4.
Yeah.
So when they came out with the rankings, I thought they were perfect. Like for me, I think this is the first time where they're not perfect because they still do the top 25, and I think there's still some things off. I think Alabama is high. Like they're what are they 3? I think they should be 4 probably.
I think
it doesn't
they're
matter
4
because
now.
of what's going to happen in the game today. But Oklahoma State, like I think, like the likeliest playoff picture right now is Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the committee does if Alabama loses with Cincinnati. I don't think there's a way Cincinnati doesn't get in because of if they win, as long as they win today. I would love to see Cincinnati, but that might just be a bit of the bias because we do root for a team who's a group of 5 team and will never have a shot at the playoff. So personally, I just want to see the committee give Cincinnati a chance. Yeah, I'm going on a tangent about Cincinnati, but we're going to talk about him later.
Yeah, well, I'll run through all the games right now. We'll talk about whatever we want. So we have Big 12 Championship at 12. Number 9 Baylor plays number 5 Oklahoma State. The SEC Championship, your best game of the day by far, is at 4 o'clock today. Georgia's the number 1 team in the country. Bama is the number 3 team in the country. The American Conference, another big game of great value, I think, even though Houston's ranked number 21. Cincinnati's ranked number 4. I think that's going to be a dogfight for that game. That's at 4 o'clock today. And the Big Ten Championship is a good one tonight. Also, Iowa, a team who was in the top 4 for quite some time this year. They got as high as number 2. They're now number 13 in the country, playing number 2 Michigan at 8 o'clock tonight. So a lot's going to happen. 2 of these teams are going to lose today.
Yeah,
that's Oklahoma State, Bama, Georgia, Cincinnati, Michigan. 2 of these teams are going to lose today.
I wanted to see what you guys thought about. So say Georgia beats Bama by like a field goal with no time left.
Bama's still out.
That's what. Are they going to kick Bama out with that close game? Because I don't know. Who's even competed with Georgia?
Loses today, they're done. I think.
They have to be.
I think they should be. I don't know if the committee's going to do that, though.
Georgia's fine.
Georgia will get it.
Yeah, Georgia's not worried.
The committee doesn't want Cincinnati. They want them to lose today.
No.
Because they know if they beat Houston today, they know they have to put them in, but they do not want them in. And I think they might be setting them up to, I hope they're not setting them up for, oh, you only beat Houston 17-14 today.
I know.
We're going to put you in the 5. Sorry, because Oklahoma State just blew out Baylor.
Yeah, that's
if
what I'm
Cincinnati
concerned
wins
about that.
today in whatever fashion it is, they should get in. But with the committee, it's just not a lock because they are looking for every chance to get Cincinnati out of the way. And I understand the point from the people who are saying that they shouldn't be in. They don't deserve to be. But how are you ever going to know if a power or a group of 5 team should get in?
This is the team.
Yeah,
this is the
if there's
time.
a team
Cincinnati's
or a time.
the best group of 5 team that we've gotten since the playoffs started. And they could be for another few years. We'll see what happens.
Fickle has done such a good job, but they haven't lost a game. I can't even remember the last time Cincinnati lost a football game.
They've only lost the bowl game last year.
They went
undefeated in regular season. So I think this is the year you have to find out if a group of 5 team is worthy of being in the playoff. And why not? Because the 5 and the 6 are no more worthy to me than Notre Dame and the 5 and the 6 are no more worthy than Cincinnati to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Notre Dame should be in.
Cincinnati, that's their one loss. That's Notre Dame's loss to Cincinnati. Cincinnati showed that they were a better football team than Notre Dame. This is as good as a championship Saturday gets.
It's a good one.
What would throw a wrench in the playoff is if Michigan
loses.
Because if Michigan loses, they're out. They're not in the playoffs.
Anyone aside, the only team that's definitely in right now is Georgia. Georgia can lose 45-0. They're going to get in.
Yeah.
All that would do is put Bama in the 1 if they did that.
Michigan, I don't think is losing today, especially after that win last week. Iowa has no offense. They have a great run defense, which is very well known. That could be the best in the country. But Michigan has played good run defenses. They played Wisconsin. I watched that game against Wisconsin, and they ran the ball very well. So if that's a tell, like I know they're not the same defenses, but if that's a tell of whether the running game is better or the run defense is better, it seems like Michigan's winning every time. They have a great running attack. I don't see how Iowa scores points.
And Michigan's got the best player in the country in Hutchinson on defense.
Yeah, oh my God.
He
is a stud.
And you're watching Hutchinson, you almost just want to put them in the one, regardless of what happens today, because of how dominant he has been. This, if we get Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, this may be the biggest slaughter of a playoff round one ever come
it's gonna be
in
ugly.
college football. Usually, I mean, how many times? Also, very weird, I want to note, ACC Championship does not feature Clemson today. They went 9-3.
I know.
Pitt and Wake Forest both went 10-2. So that's a bit of a.
That?
I don't remember. That's definitely. If I'm wrong, I'd love to be corrected. I don't think that's happened since before Deshaun Watson. I don't think it could have possibly happened.
Yeah,
They've been in the playoff every year.
It's crazy.
Chances you think Kenny Pickett stays in the same stadium next year, plays for the Steelers?
Possible. It's possible.
I don't know how good he really is.
I gotta watch.
It
I haven't
seems like
watched. I haven't gotten to him in my draft.
I haven't watched
yet.
any of, if not any of Pitt at all.
I've watched
but
him probably
I
2 or 3 times
like,
this year, and he's really good. But I think he's probably like QB 5 or 6 until I actually.
It's exciting to see like 2 new teams in the ACC championship.
Yeah, I'm gonna be locked in on the TV this week.
I'm happy it's not
excited.
Clemson.
That's a game that I probably should have put that one in there. It's a really good game today. If you're just looking for something, commercial break game, that's a fantastic game. Wake Forest, Pitt.
Yeah, looks good.
We're missing another just key championship. We got the Sun Belt Championship. Too.
Oh, yeah.
How about App State versus Louisiana Lafayette? The Chants go 10-2 and don't even get their own conference championship because they lost in division.
Yeah,
which
so
sucks.
stupid.
But had to mention the Sun Belt in there.
Yeah,
gotta rip.
You know what I hate too? I hate Big Ten East and West. I should be seeing Ohio State, Michigan for the second time today.
Yeah,
that would be great.
So there was really because I knew the Big Ten championship had to happen, but. So Michigan and Ohio State are in the same conference. Can they never play in the Big Ten championship?
They're both in Big Ten East.
I just they're so like I don't
understand.
I follow college football, but it seems like that's just like how we can't get Michigan and
so basically Big
Ohio
Ten
State
East
in the
is
Big
so
Ten.
weak that only Michigan and Ohio State can play in it, and then Big Ten West is like all the mid teams of the Big 10 So it's Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and I hate the way they divided them. That's terrible because I want to see Michigan, Ohio State every week if I could.
Yeah.
But we'll let Harbaugh have his win, because most likely Ohio State would have came out and just stomped on them this time around. So
what a way though for Iowa to get in the Big Ten championship. I mean, it looked like Wisconsin. Wisconsin was not good this year.
No,
they were not good
They weren't
at all at
impressive.
the beginning of the year. And there was a path for Wisconsin to be in the Big Ten championship still, and now it's Iowa. Which is unfortunate. We didn't Ohio State can't play for it because they've been better than those 2 teams.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is. And I mean, Iowa's kind of just happy to be here.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have watched Iowa.
A huge upset.
Iowa's defense
is great. Go for the huge upset today. Ruin Michigan's season.
Iowa's got an awesome
10.
defense. They have a great offensive line. They have my best offensive lineman in the country. Tyler Linderbaum's playing center, so he unfortunately we won't see any of him in Hutchinson, of course. But
yeah,
they got a good run game, good defense. Iowa's a tough team.
That's what I feel like. If there's one big team that's going to lose this week, it's going to be Michigan.
Yeah,
I feel like Iowa's defense is so good. It's so good. It's their offense. If their offense can score, then it's over.
Michigan's in that classic spot of we just got our biggest win in program history, and they might come in a little bit high today. And
they might get smacked in the mouth.
Maybe the game starts after a half. It's going to be 7-7, 10-7, that kind of game. But I don't see how Iowa scores enough points.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's a big upset. But if there's
unless
one,
they turn it over a few times, I don't see how Iowa scores enough.
Obviously, Ohio State's still in a different stratosphere from Iowa. As good as Iowa is for a 13.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not even close.
Team. But Iowa's always got great athletes. They always have first-round draft picks on both sides of their lines. And so that'll be a great game today. I'm really excited. Notre Dame's got a path, too. We'll talk about them. They've got a little bit of a path here. They need Alabama to lose. They need Georgia to beat Alabama. They need Baylor to beat Oklahoma State because Oklahoma State will get in over Notre Dame. And they need Houston to beat Cincinnati. All these games are possible for either side, of course.
There's definitely a chance where Notre Dame gets if Georgia beats Alabama and Baylor beats Oklahoma State, I really think you don't even need Cincinnati to lose. I think Notre Dame gets in, honestly.
But
the committee's itching to get these guys in the playoffs for some reason. Every year they always are.
I think though that they will have an issue because they kind of have openly said that Brian Kelly will be factored in. What do we think of that? What do you think of Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that.
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley, I think, is a good signing, but there is some, like the way these two guys left, like, Oklahoma players, it's, like, a little different because Notre Dame players are, like, the commits are not leaving because of Brian Kelly. I believe there's only one commit who decommitted. But all the Oklahoma guys are following Lincoln Riley to USC. Like
that's crazy. Man.
Oklahoma's not going in the right direction,
Oklahoma.
and Lincoln Riley kind of just like was getting ready. He was chomping at the bit to get out.
He's
of there.
so smart because they're going to go to the SEC and get pounded once
Yeah.
they get there. My
And
God.
USC, the Pac-12
get
is
out.
not a good, like it's not better than the Big Ten, the SEC. Like the Pac-12 is a very winnable division. In my opinion.
Oh, definitely. Pac-12, he could rebuild them. They'll be in the playoffs every year with him if he gets them in the right path.
Saw Oregon and Utah last night.
Oh my
Oregon
God! Whoa,
Oh my God!
That was bad.
I don't know how Oregon was 3 and 4 and even 2 in the playoff committee rankings every week. Like that's not a good team.
They were
No.
They shouldn't have never been up that high. They beat Ohio State in the beginning of the year, but that was their only good win. Like everything else. Like, Lincoln Riley can go to USC and win the Pac-12.
Well, I saw that, what's his name from, I forget the kid's name, maybe it's like Quinn something from Ohio State.
Yeah, he decommitted from Ohio State.
He decommitted from Ohio State, and everyone's saying to go home to Texas, and he committed to Texas previously from Ohio State, which is very possible with Steve Sarkisian there. But I think he might be pulling a stunt to USC if he could.
Yeah.
Dude, if I was the best quarterback in the country.
If he goes to USC with, like this guy is not just like I didn't know who this guy was before yesterday, but this is the second highest rated quarterback recruit ever. Like
that's crazy.
This is the worst haircut ever.
He has the worst haircut I've ever seen too. If he goes to USC, I mean they're gonna win a lot of games in the Pac-12.
So the problem for him though was he's not starting his first year at Ohio State.
I know because wasn't he in his senior
year? He's in his senior year right now. And so he wants to go and be an immediate starter, which is like,
you still have to wait your turn.
Yeah, chill out, buddy.
Stroud might win a Heisman.
Anyone yet?
Like, shut up, dude.
Yeah, you'll get 2 years, dude.
For a year, you still dominate for 2. But that kind of means that I don't think Lincoln Riley would put him in as an immediate starter either, so that's why I think Texas is the most likely option. But my God, come on, dude. You can't sit again like everybody else?
Simmer the ego down a little bit, buddy.
But
you're nothing special yet.
We'll talk about Brian Kelly too. Like Brian Kelly's a scumbag.
Yeah, that was a snake move.
I don't even think it's the worst move for him. I think it's the worst spot to be in.
Did you see the video of him with his southern accent?
Yeah.
Come on. One day he was telling the Notre Dame players about how grateful he was for them and how grateful his family is, and he was saying family normal. 24 hours later, he's at the LSU basketball. Me and my family, dude. He is I hate Brian Kelly.
I hate him, dude.
He is a total.
I'm telling you right now.
He's a total scumbag.
I mean, look at his playoff appearances. He goes in and Saban. Like, Nick Saban is so happy that this guy's coaching LSU right now.
Dude, yeah. Brian Kelly thinks he can hang with the big boys in the SEC now. He's going to get killed by Alabama.
I understand why you would think LSU was a better program. Of course, they won that national championship a few years ago with maybe the best college football team ever. But then you look at the pros. Odell, Jarvis Landry, every defensive back in the NFL, every receiver in the NFL, every running back in the NFL. Burrow put them on the map for quarterbacks a little bit. But Notre Dame puts more players to the pros every year because they have great offensive linemen. They always have really good linebackers. So you're actually losing the amount of players that are great, but you're getting a different set of players that are great because you're getting the wide receivers, you're getting the running backs, sometimes quarterbacks, but you're getting the defensive backs. But everything up the middle for Notre Dame is much better. Everything in their offensive line is much better. Defensive line usually is better. LSU's got some really good defensive linemen come through there, though. Linebackers most of the time are better at Notre Dame as a group. LSU's always got that Devin White, though, that is really great. But I don't think you're really gaining much, and the competition is 100 times harder in the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get...
Yeah, Brian Kelly... we'll see how good... Like, because we know he's a good coach. Like, he's broken so many records in Notre Dame. He's won so many games. He's never won the big game. That's his issue. And almost every game in the SEC is a big game. Like, you can't, like, you have to keep the foot on the gas if you want to be a good coach at that level. And I honestly, like, he tried to bring his guys from Notre Dame. Dude, none of the coaches followed him. Like, Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator, didn't follow him to LSU. Yeah. Like, that, like, he wanted him, and he was like, no, this is my home, and that's what you got to respect. Freeman obviously didn't follow him because he's now the head coach of Notre Dame, and those players are behind him. Like, they love him. And I'm very, like, excited to see how good Notre Dame plays.
Yeah,
like,
maybe they'll come out.
Their guy, Freeman. Like, we'll see in the bowl game, maybe a playoff game. It seems unlikely, but definitely a path to that.
Also, I got to say, Notre Dame's got to join the conference, dude. Because
it's sneaky shit, dude. I hate it.
So many people don't want to go there. You can't redshirt anyone as an independent school. And you're not in a conference championship on Championship Saturday. It gives you such a disadvantage. And you're picking teams to play. Ryan Kelly, have fun next year with the schedule the SEC makes you. Because you're picking
it's going to be different, buddy.
Every year to play. Are you kidding? The best team you picked was Cincinnati?
The team they picked.
Cincinnati was very good this year. But
they lost
the only competent team you're picking and competent school is Cincinnati. You're playing North Carolina and Georgia Tech and all these bottom of the barrel ACC teams,
Florida State,
Pac-12, and it's an embarrassment.
Yeah,
and you are going to go and you're going to get a schedule put on your desk that says Auburn, Alabama, Florida. In a few years, Oklahoma, and you're going to just sit there and be like, Jesus Christ, I'm going to be coaching UCF next year because I'm going to get rolled.
He is in for a rude
I can't wait to see that.
We'll see, maybe he turns it around, but it seems like Notre Dame is in a better spot today. Like morale-wise, like feeling good, like they didn't lose any commits, like they're not missing a beat, and it seems like they love having Marcus Freeman as their next head coach.
Really locked in for it. It looks like both parties are really excited about coaching each other and being coached. I want to wrap it up. We're approaching the hour here. Normally we get into some NFL stuff. This week not going to happen because we kind of ran an extra 10-15 minutes on baseball that took away from the end.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch football next time.
But next weekend, without the baseball news, definitely expect a lot more NFL playoff picture, NFL free agency, NFL offseason paths and predictions, and just everything else that we don't talk about on GBU. But if you guys have any closing remarks for today's first After Hours episode, I'd be glad to hear them, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, we talked a lot of baseball today. We talked for 40 minutes about the Mets and Yankees, which is just it shows why we're gonna have so much fun doing this show, because it's an opportunity for us to talk about baseball, to talk about college
football. And most of the time, it's not going to be just us three here either.
Yeah, and it's going to get improved with the amount of time.
We're going to have people on, like our friends, anyone who wants to come on, talk about their favorite team after something big probably happens. We're definitely going to have our friend Jack. He was supposed to join us today. A big Yankees fan. Unfortunately, we didn't.
Once we figure out a short-term caller system, it'll work a lot better for us, too. Because we have 4 or 5 people already that have said to us, hey, I want to talk about this.
Yeah, and as long as today's episode there still wasn't a lot of, we missed a lot of things talking about. So, next week we can finish the MLB, offseason, everything that's happened, all, what the Rangers did, what the Mariners did, what the Blue Jays did, all those moves, we could talk about those. And, we still didn't even touch the NFL today. We'll talk about the NFL playoff picture next week if we have time. All that good stuff. We'll keep talking about the college football outcomes. So, a lot we missed today. But that gives us great conversation points for next episode, too. Still a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this is going. Obviously, this is our first one, so you can only expect it to really get better from here. We're definitely going to have it more organized and more to the point. But I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to talk football and baseball in the future, too.
Yep. All right.
Even some hockey and
NBA,
we'll
scoot some hockey in there, too.
Talk about everything. All right, that's going to be it for the first After Hours episode. As always, KB, JD, and Reese. We'll see you on Tuesday for GBU, and then Thursdays always for Pick'em as well, and now Saturdays for After Hours. So we're very excited for what we have coming up, and the next few weeks are going to be very, very exciting. NFL playoffs and everything else heating up. So thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.
Peace.
Make sure to subscribe and check out the social medias down below.
Yep.